City of Lagos. Good morning and welcome to Today in the News here in Vanguard Life. My name is Ololade Adeomi. I look into our newspapers for today, starting with Vanguard. Major headline on Vanguard says new tax laws take effect tomorrow. Tinubu insists, says no substantial issue established to warrant a stop. Calls on the stakeholders to support implementation. Fix the law first. PDP urges presidency. NECA endorses takeoff, says delay crime against Nigeria. Major story can be found on page 9 of the Vanguard newspaper. Look into our top banner. It says, we are saddened by AG's oral crash, says family. Bus tire caused our car accident, says police. 2027, why Obi chose Enugu for today's defection to ADC. Transfers above 10,000 naira, banks to start charging 50 naira stamp duty from January. Alleged money laundering. Malami's son docked, remanded in prison. Amotekun nabs 39 terror suspects fleeing Sokoto in Ondo. Lower banner says the CBN projects 4.49% economic growth, 51 billion naira dollar reserves for 2026. 2027, we won't allow another mistake in Rivers, says Wike. 2025, how Nigerians paid more for data calls despite network disruptions. And lastly, AFCON Super Eagles cruise on, make it a 3 wins from 3 away from the Vanguard newspaper. Look into the Punch newspaper. Major headline on Punch says alteration rule. Tinubu insists on January 1st for new tax regime. President says no turning back on reforms. Atiku, PDP slam tax legislation. Top banner says a fatal crash. Family demands access to Joshua as FRSC awaits probe report. Military arrests suicide bomber. Recovers 189 AK-47 rifles. FX reserves to hit $51 billion by 2026, says CBN. 2026 budget, 10 states plan 4.3 trillion naira borrowing. Lower banner says alleged money laundering. Ex-AGF Malami, wife, son to spend New Year in prison. Lagos Plaza debt toll hits 5 as fire raises another market. And lastly, PDP sues INEC over candidates' exclusion for Mikiti poll. Look into the Nation newspaper. Major headline on the Nation says, why tax laws must take off fully now by Tinubu. Top banner, Rivers lawmakers reject Utah gift. Edwin gets British royal honor. Tobana says CBN rejects 4.5% growth in 2026. Alleged 8.7 billion naira fraud. Malami son remanded in prison till Friday. Lower banner, it says boxing world sympathizes with Joshua. Away from the Nation and look into the Guardian newspaper. Major headline on Guardian says cooking gas. Over 20 million households stick to firewood, charcoal over affordability. Top banner says FRSC reiterates caution as British envoy governors visit Joshua at Lagos Hospital. NICOM insists on July 30 recapitalization, rules out extension. PDP shrinks in Oyo as Aborishari leads as supporters to ADC. Ganduje anticipates Yusuf's defection as Kwakwanso rallies lawmakers. Lower banner says Tinubu ignores suspension calls, insists new tax laws take off tomorrow. Court remands Malami, son, over money laundering charges. And lastly, 2027, we won't accept excuses of glittish. Bode judge tells INEC boss. That's all we have on the front page of the newspapers this morning. Join us after the break for a quick analysis of some of our top stories. Welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is Today in the News here on Vanguard. My name is Ololade Adewumi. Joining me in the studio today for a quick analysis is Mr. Gbero Olajoigbe, Executive Director, Emergencies and Risk Alert. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. It's a pleasure being with you.
It's a pleasure having you in our studios. I look into a major story for today. New tax law takes effect tomorrow, Tinubu insists. President Bola Tinubu has said that the new tax laws, including those that took effect on June 26, 2025, and the remaining acts scheduled to commence on January 1st, 2026, will be implemented as planned. This came as the People's Democratic Party (PDP) renewed its call for suspension of commencement date of the new tax act, citing discrepancies between the harmonized version passed by the National Assembly and the version later gazetted, which it said has raised serious public concern nationwide. This came as the People's Democratic Party (PDP) renewed its call for suspension of the commencement date of the new tax act. So, what are your thoughts on the president insisting that the law will be implemented despite all the controversies surrounding this tax law?
Well, I think law should not be built on lawlessness because if you call it law, then you want to create order, semblance of order at least, in the tax regime in this case. It shouldn't become an instrument of doubt for anybody because it's binding on everybody that is taxing. So, to that extent, and you have heard that there are two versions of the tax, the one passed by the National Assembly and the one gazetted. These are serious criminal allegations that needed to be trashed out before your implementation of tax. And I've not seen a very concrete evidence of not being a mischief on the side of the government in terms of the fact that what was passed was what was gazetted. And as long as that is there, there's no need for you to rush implementation. Implementation can be shifted rather than running with a very severe error that indicts the very existence of government itself, error that indicts the tax regime itself. There are a lot of assortments that go with this tax regime that President Tinubu is pushing out. One, to call it a progressive tax structure is to deny the fact that they are deceiving the people. Let me give you a critical example. When Tinubu wanted to remove soil subsidy, he said that it was only the rich that was benefiting, that the rich were the only person that it could affect the poor. But the story is everywhere today. Poverty has become a very essential instrument of his governance by the nature of many people that have been pushed into the bracket of the poor. So it's a lie that this tax, that the poor will not pay this tax. They are deceiving the people. Of course, if you are earning below 800 naira, 1,000 naira per year, you are, according to them, you are exempted from taxation. Are you exempted from VAT, value-added tax, which include what you do on daily basis? If you want to enter transport, as long as they collect petrol, money on petrol and the dealers, you are going to pay for it. So they should stop deceiving people. The poor is going to get poorer, if not through direct taxation, through indirect taxation, which is even a daily affair. So it's more severe than what people are thinking. Don't be deceived the second time that, you are not, it's in the interest of the people. Look, the road to hell is paved with gold. The road to hell. That's why many people are rushing there. Why than paved with gold, thinking that, it's a smooth road to destiny fulfillment. That is the way this tax system is. When the implementation starts, those that are rejoicing today will be lamenting. I assure you that the other day you could see the lamentation of the Airpeace Chief Executive Officer, Oyema, when he came out to say that even the flight from Abuja to Lagos might climb to 1 million, one trip. according to him, because of this tax. Even though it has been denied by the tax, but you cannot claim that Onyema Allen is ignorant of what he's saying. Because it's not ignorant of what he's saying, just as many of us. It's only the apostle of this tax system who has no depth understanding of what taxation looks like that we continue to applaud this thing. Another thing that is so absurd and flout common sense about this tax regime is that it's been outsourced to France. I don't know. I've never heard in history of any country that your tax system is being outsourced to tax, or you have agreement with other country for that matter. Tax is an eternally generated revenue for the federation. For God's sake, we are not a colony. We are not. What does he want to achieve by tying our tax system to the apparatus of France? I really don't know. After is France going to be, or the company that is going to run it from France, is still an extension of After Better that ran that of Lagos? Those things are not clear. And they are issues that should not be opaque in a regime that taxpayers will be extorted. And even to come to the fundamental of taxation, tax is built on the basis that a country is a productive country and that people are working in that country and they deserve to pay tax. Is Nigeria a productive country now? Even under him, aside from the propaganda that is being pushed out, you know how many companies that have closed up, those that cannot even meet the benchmark of cost of production, that are no longer functional, that have thrown people into labor market, the young people that are coming out and they can't get anything, and the only thing that they depend on is a support from their parents, from their friends, and that support will come short now because of the shrinking disabled income that will be consequential to the implementation of this tax regime. So you have a lot of issues that has not been dealt with, and that is being hidden from the public, like what we used to call hidden charges. When you are going to a particular agreement, particularly with networks, with everything, you saw a lot of things that you don't understand. They are opaque. It's when the implementation starts, you know the consequences. And even if you go back to the removal of fuel subsidy, where are we on the gas that they promised? How many cars have reduced the transport cost even on the account of that gas? Who is monitoring it? They just throw down a policy or law thinking that Nigeria will just flow with it. Obviously, the problem is that Nigerians have gotten used to suffering. So challenging government atrocities, reckless implementation of law and policy have become things that is out of order. In a normal society, you question everything around us. At the end of the day, you're the final payer of that tax. And you demand everything concerning what goes into the tax system that the government is building. So you can't be arrogant to the extent that there is no going back. I've never seen a democracy where a president or anybody for that matter, in terms of controversy, will say there is no going back. Except black people who are in power, who pretend to be practicing democracy. That is where you see that type of reckless statement that is undemocratic, that does not agree with ethos of civilian regime, that there's no going back. Anything can be negotiated. Even law can be repealed if necessity compel it. We can't be a country that people will say that, oh, look at their law. One is printed and as if it's a fraudulent entity. That what you have in your gazette is quite different from what you have in the law you pass. Is that not a reputational risk to the country? And people will be blaming people that, these are the people that are actually demarketing Nigerians with the choice of law, with the choice of policy, with what is not supposed to be. And for God's sake, any government that cannot protect its people does not deserve us from them. Do you know what the economy of kidnapping in Nigeria today? Several billion of naira have been paid to kidnappers because of failure of protection, failure of prevention by government. So why should even Nigeria pay tax in the first place? Are they not paying tax enough? You don't give electricity? Of course, I don't need to tell you the story of Lagos now, how erratic the power. And reasonably, I call people in Abuja, the complaint is the same in the last few weeks. So what are we really paying tax for? Is it to resource the Soyinka's assertion of deployment of troops to Shei or any other government official? We can't be feeding people with our money where you can't provide protection, where you can't provide water, where you can't provide electricity. So what those who pay tax, because they will complain, oh, in America, they pay tax and everything. Look at the quality of life. Is it comparable? Do you rampantly, recklessly get people kidnapped? 300 people at a time? You don't offer protection? Don't you know that the money contributed for their, what do they call it, ransom is coming from Nigerians? And in most cases, poor Nigerians who contribute few naira to ensure that their relatives are released. And even the rich are crying too. For tax to be meaningful, there must be the reason for tax is for government to carry out the duty of security and the welfare of the people.
So let's look at what critics are saying. Critics are actually arguing that the implementation timeline is more politically driven than technically justified. Do you agree with that statement, sir?
Yeah, well, there's no technical justification about doing wrong thing. There's no even look. Everything is politics. I've just told you of what happened to the removal of subsidy, and let me tell you, what actually happened was not even the removal. Government stopped paying subsidy and shifted the consequence, shifted the burden to the people. Not that they remove anything. There's nothing called removal. They shifted the burden of the payer. Where government was paying for recklessly, where government was paying before for recklessly managing the economy to the extent that naira declined in intrinsic value. So it was naira that declined in intrinsic value, that diminished in quality of exchange, that made it possible for you now to exchange naira for dollar, and when you bring in product, you calculate it in dollar and you convert it to naira for Nigeria to pay. Who is the Nigerian creation? Are we the creator of the problem? Look at the reckless looting that happened under Buhari, and those are the people who call themselves patriots, including Malami. We quickly say that Nigeria are not patriotic. We can see how patriotic he was under Buhari now, under Buhari then. The same thing is going on in this administration. Let no one be deceived. Several looting going on. What has they done about better edu? Is that what our task will be funding? The reckless lifestyle, the Epicurean journey into hedonism. Is that what task will be funding? We need to come together what this task will actually fund. If it doesn't fund development, the only person that is entitled to feeding in Nassau Rock is the president, the wife, and any of his children that is under 18 years. Those are the one covered that we can feed. Any child of the president that is above 18 years should be on his own and should not become pests to our tax regime and be paid through the tax system that we contribute. All those nonsense should stop. That is, if they are copying America, they should also copy America. That is what happened there. If Trump is not on leave, if Trump is on leave, he pays for his food. He will not say that I'm president. I want to eat the food of the American district. So he paid for his food. That one came out under Obama. Because when Obama was on leave and he traveled outside of US, he was on his own. Of course, you saw the testimony of the wife the other day, that every food they take that is not for the president or when they were in White House, they were charged for it. That is the system that works. That is the meaning of people, or that is why they say, oh, American taxpayers' money. You can't spend it anyhow. British taxpayers' money. You can't spend it. But is it the same thing here? So let nobody begin to make the cow that Nigeria represents in terms of economy and begin to show imperial tendency of, I have said it is so, no going back on tax or anything. That is an antithesis to democracy, antithesis to development, and unacceptable to civilization.
Let's quickly look at our second story for today. In 2025, Nigerians experienced significant increases in mobile telecom costs. This is including voice calls, SMS, and data. Even after the Nigerian Communications Commission (NCC) approved a 50% tariff hike on telecom services, the first of such adjustments since 2013. Despite higher prices, network quality, and connectivity frequently deteriorating with widespread service disruption recorded across many states. Then we still have problems like fiber cuts, equipment theft, vandalism of telecom infrastructure, and even diesel supply issues affecting base stations. And it has contributed to frequent outages and poor quality of services. Would you say the NCC's decision to actually approve a 50% increase in telecom, after more than a decade is justified?
Well, you can see that, of course, those people are in market. That's why I challenge them when they say they begin to use ease of doing business as propaganda. Ease of doing business is not going to register company as CAC. That is not what it is. It is about the business environment, both the physical environment and the policy environment. For God's sake, if you don't have lights most of these things, they use diesel to power their substations in most cases. And it's expensive. I'm not justifying the increment because service is not there. But if we blame them as direct users of telephone, we can blame them to high heaven. But the reality is that they're in an environment that is hostile to their business. That is just the reality. For several years, MTN has never come out to say that it made loss, except for last year, which was, even though we don't believe most of the things they say. But then the fact is that it's clear from the environment that the cost of production is getting increased day in, day out, whether in terms of interest rates in the bank, in the bank. I'm even talking beyond communication alone now, in terms of diesel. Because when you can't provide electricity at cheap rate, then what are you producing? To the extent that how can a country that is a developing nation become economically competitive when your cost of power is even higher than those that are producing somewhere else? How will you compete? How will your good compete in the global market? When the cost of production, for example, on the average in Ghana, they are producing close up. Of course, you know why Liver Brother left Nigeria? Because it was cheaper producing in Ghana than in Nigeria. So they could actually bring the finished product to Nigeria, and that has cost us a lot of jobs, a lot of image, a lot of corporate presence. And because of this power issue that even Tinubu regime has refused to address, he said it himself during campaign that if he doesn't fix power, that Nigerians should not vote for him. So if Nigerians are hearing nation, hearing people, he doesn't deserve their vote if he fails to fix power within these 4 years of his administration. Because that is the core of everything. If you're able to do that, you can bring the cost of production low and the price will come down. And of course, technology, telecom will be able to at least possibly regulate their price if there is a competition among them. But now, it is not market forces. It is not the forces of supply and demand that is determining price. It is the failure of government in the area of energy that is determining price. And you have no option. You have to make on. You have to use data. And there is stress on this. The other day, MTN said note that about the vandalization of its equipment. Mm-hmm. But protection of critical infrastructure is the responsibility of federal government. Coming to that. And you cannot protect critical infrastructure if people are hungry. Mm-hmm. And because they know that you are looting. And they will loot whatever they can find outside. You are looting what is within you, like Malami. Malami looted, according to them, the case is in court now, with his son and his wife, 212 billion naira. One person.
I said allegedly. The case is still in court.
Well, it's left for court. It's left for court to say allegedly. The charge in court is what I'm telling you. He has been charged to court, so it's no longer an instrument of guesswork. So we can talk about the charge that is in the court. And it's not the allegation is left for court to determine whether it was allegation or a fact. So I will not talk about what court should do with that. But that is the fact we have. Emefiele Leon, even if we didn't see we saw 700 and something houses by one single individual under the so-called regime of an integrity man who presided over the looting of society helplessly and incompetently. So the trajectory is not different, even now. And it can only get worse if we don't begin to send the message that, one, you are a president, you are a servant. You are not lord over anybody in democracy. You are a servant and you must listen when people talk to take decisions because you are not paying for the consequences of your policy or the law. As a president, you get food free. You are not paying VAT on anything. Your family member are debt free, albeit illegally, albeit immorally. The same thing with those in National Assembly. A lot of what they shouldn't get, they are getting them. Immorally, illegally, and criminally, including the so-called constituency allowance that has no basis in our law. So is that what our task will be going for? Is that what will lead to development to the extent that telecoms now we have power to power their substation, all their station, and bring down prices? So it's a chain reaction. For all we can blame the telecoms for what they are doing, but inevitably the problem is not rooted in their companies. The business and the policy environment is nothing to write home about.
Okay, so are you saying the business environment is the reason why we're paying so much but still getting very poor services?
Well, it's part of it. It's part of it because they have to break even. So, if you are vandalized this thing because they fail to protect those infrastructure, government fail to protect, they damage it, then that will diminish the quality of service you get from them. Are they the one that destroy their no? Who? People who we often call criminals. Who are supposed to tame them? The government. That's what I mean by the physical environment that impacts on the business environment.
So how much responsibility?
As a matter of fact, are they even supposed to be using generators to power their substation in a working system where power is regularly supplied?
So how much responsibility would you say falls on the government, falls on the network providers, and we as citizens as well?
What I see with the network provider is they are often political in their statement, because they don't want to expose much about what government is doing, what the failure of government and everything. It's only recently when it got to them, they said that, they have damaged most of the equipment in this environment and everything. But they always blame the criminals. But one thing I always talk about, in a society that does not prioritize welfare and security of the people, the state prepare the crime that people commit in such environment. So inevitably, it goes back to the state, which is the Nigerian society, Nigerian state. If you don't prepare for the children, for those who are coming out, you don't care about them, you don't plan for them, you will be in trouble, because they will fight back at society that seems to be rejecting them and making no way for them. Let me remind you, early beginning of last year, Tinubu said that first quarter of 2025 is going to have a youth conference, where plan will be made for Nigeria youth. This is the last day of the year. He has not touched that. Maybe we touch it because of election next year. Nigerians, young people, need to be planned for. Seriously, because we are going to face a lot of problems if we fail to do that. That is the consequence of an uncaring country who does not prioritize welfare and security of the people. So government is not just for you to come and enjoy. Buy yours. Go travel to France, to UK, to Europe, to everywhere for medication or whatever you go for. That is not the essence of government. I was reading from the president of Ghana the other day. He moved from Accra and went to a tourist center to spend his Christmas and New Year holiday. That is how you build a country. Imagine if President Tinubu should move to Yankari Game Reserve now. Are we going to find it will promote terrorism, and it will diminish the presence of terrorists in that environment? That is how to promote your country. Imagine President Tinubu, or high-profile member of his government, going to Kaduna Medical Center to receive treatment, if need be. That is how to grow a nation, not by all this do what I say, but don't do what I do system that they are running. Self-centered and unacceptable imperialism. They continue to manifest while in position of power and authority.
Thank you for joining us today, sir. It's a pleasure having you in our studios as always.
It's a pleasure being with you. Thank you very much.
That was Mr. Gbero Olaji, Executive Director, Emergency and Risk Alert. Do well to follow us on all our social media platforms as seen on your screen. For up-to-date stories, check out our website at www.vanguardngr.com. My name is Ololade Adeomi. Until next time, Happy New Year in advance.